What you're about to see is just an excerpt of a much longer live stream that I did over on the Snipe Life's YouTube channel alongside Brandon Robbins and Urbania. I would highly encourage you to go subscribe to all of their channels because they have amazing content, but stick around right now and catch this short excerpt.
Tyler, thank you so much for being here. Definitely just give us a little bit of an introduction about yourself and maybe how you got involved in the Chosen in the first place. And then let's just dive deep into, some of these scenes that you've written. Oop, I think you're muted, Tyler.
I love it. He's just like...
It's just like every day of our lives, right? You're on mute. I don't know who needs to hear this. But no, thanks for having me on. Dallas texted me and he said he just got back from Italy. So I'm no stand-in for Dallas, but I'll do my best. But yeah, I'm Tyler. I met Dallas about 10 years ago. I was a video editor at the time, and I kept telling him, hey, just so you know, I want to quit this video editing job and become a writer. And he was like, why? You're such a good video editor. And I was like, I know, but I would like to write. And so that's what I'm going to do. And so eventually I did quit and go off writing, but we would still write together. And so we wrote a series of shorts. And one of them, as many of you probably know, was called The Shepherd. And it got seen by some of the right people. And here we are. Oh my goodness. Oof, here we are.
Awesome. So kind of maybe introduce us to one of the scenes that you had the most fun with on season 2. And let's just dive into that.
Oh man, on season 2, there's so many. Do you guys have a favorite? Do you have one that sticks out to you?
Several.
We've definitely talked about the season finale a lot, the Beatitudes, and kind of talking through that scene. I think that for me, my favorite written episode is probably episode 1 of season 2. So if you had anything to do with that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
He actually did.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a team effort. I remember when we first started talking about that big surprise opening and whether we could pull it off. But that was so exciting to just kind of imagine what would these people be thinking about and saying about this person who was their friend. So I definitely loved working, getting to contribute to that scene and especially the framing device at the end. I remember when we first pitched it, it was horrible. It was just John alone on the Isle of Patmos. and Ryan was like, Tyler, it's just a guy writing. Like we need something better than that. So that was really like fun to watch it kind of move in its progressions to what it ultimately became. But yeah, something I really loved in season 2 actually is the opening sequence of episode 4, which is the kind of the journey that Jesse takes from childhood to adulthood. And I'm sure you guys have commented on this, but there's no dialogue. And so we loved just getting to kind of describe in this sort of Up-like way, that Pixar movie Up, how this story could be told without words for the most part. So that was like a cool challenge. And also I was sort of like writing myself into the story. My little brother, one time he and I were climbing a tree in the front yard of our family's home, and I watched him like reach for a limb that I knew was like too like small to hold his weight, and I like in slow motion like watched him reach for it and crack, and I watched his body like hit all the branches on the way down, and then he like landed on his tailbone, and he was like really injured for a long time. He's totally great now. He was like a college athlete. He's fine. But when we were kids, that happened, and so sometimes it's these things where I think when I first sent over my pitch of like how I wanted to do it, I was sort of just drawing on my own life experiences of like, I remember watching his hand reach for that branch, and I just kind of wanted to see it on the screen. So I think for anyone out there who's a writer, always, draw on your own trauma and your own experiences. I think those things can turn out working for the better. I think when my brother saw it, he was like, what? You wrote me into the show.
That's awesome. I think one thing that I always think about writing wise is, I know Dallas has talked about it a lot, but maybe things that you are very cautious about approaching, or things that maybe you're even scared to take on because there's a lot to the show. It's not just a show, right? It's Christianity. Like, this is a big deal, the story of Jesus. And so I know that you guys hold that weight, obviously. But was there any moments like that in season 2, or moments that you're thinking of for the future that maybe you're hesitant about, or that you've put a lot of thought in because it's a picky thing, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the obvious answer is anytime Jesus opens his mouth, we're all just. But Dallas is really good at keeping it. I'm sure Daryl has talked maybe on one of these streams or something about one of our values is like playfulness. And so, am I right, Daryl? Am I saying that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's good to know that like we're not like scared because we're not like, we're not a doctrine, we're not a church, we're not like an organization that whatever. It's a TV show. So we're not telling people like what to think or what to believe or what we're not saying like this is definitely true. So that allows us to play, right? Like that. It's like kids, you don't have to tell them to play, I don't know, whatever they, dress up or play house or they play, cowboys in the woods or whatever. They just do it. And so when we have that feeling of playfulness, we're like, oh, we can just kind of experiment and then somebody will catch us if we're about to fall. Like if we go way over the line, Dallas will rein it in. And then if he doesn't, one of the scholars like our rabbi or our scholar, like our teachers and evangelical like historians who look at the scripts will kind of like set us straight. But yeah, it's pretty freaky anytime we're gonna take something that, for instance, in season 1, when Jesus is on the roof with Nicodemus, we kind of had to write a lot of extra stuff into that because it's hard kind of to understand. I don't want to say difficult to understand, but you really have to peer into it and you have to explain a lot of things. And so we were adding a lot to that whole conversation from the book of John. And that, I think I've said before, it felt a little bit like being asked to rewrite or expand upon Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. It's like the most famous, verse in the Bible is in this conversation, and we were kind of judging it. And so that was like, that kind of had me on thin ice for a little while. And then I would say the other thing that I was cautious about and wanted to make sure we were definitely not over our skis on was when we came up with this idea to frame the Beatitudes as a map. And I remember, talking to Dallas around, I was like, hey, I think it's like where people should look. And we'd heard someone say something similar to that, like at some ministry somewhere. It wasn't a direct quote, but that was like the gist of the idea. And I was like, I want to make sure it really is a map because I don't want people coming after us saying like, well, my pastor told me that the Beatitudes aren't a map. And not that we really care that much, like, because if we did, oh my goodness, when would the comments end? So yeah, those are some examples of times when it's like,
Awesome. Nostal asks you, was season 2, episode 8 planned and done first, and then you went backwards for each of the Beatitudes, or no?
Yes. So when we, I think we were we in, or I can't remember where we were, we were always, when we don't all live in the same place. We're always getting together in these different, so I can never remember. It was like, was this Oregon? Was that Elgin? Where were we? But I remember when we decided that like, okay, it's going to be the Beatitudes. And instead of, Jesus preaching the whole sermon at the end of that episode, we're going to have the sermon preached kind of via the preparation, him talking with Matthew, and then also that we wanted the Beatitudes to like focus on each of the characters. So then, yeah, we extrapolated those backwards and tried to see like who would this like sort of apply to. Not a direct, we didn't make like a map, like direct, this is exactly how it has to be. But yes, that was planned. We knew the ending before we put quote pen to paper, if you will, or fingers to keyboard. We knew exactly like how that episode, you always have to do that way. You can't start writing a show until I think exactly how. For instance, we're working on season 3 right now.
Hey,
we know exactly.
Whoa!
I know.
Mute Daryl.
What? The red flag's coming up. What are you talking about?
They're like, don't do it. But like, since we know the final frame, like we're like, how do we get the characters there? It's like if I'm in Chicago and I want to get to San Diego, it's like, oh, well, how do I get there? You just have to know what your destination is. So like, as we've been working on season 3, how do we move these characters to this place where this is how they will feel? And we absolutely did that with season 2. And the Beatitudes were our device for pulling that off.
Yeah, super cool. Anybody else have a question for Tyler before we move on to the controversial moments from season 2?
I do. And this is a question that I really want to know. The weight. Do you lose sleep? Like, when you're really coming down to writing for The Chosen, is it something that just really keeps you up at night and there's a lot of weight on your shoulders for this? And then two, how do you deal with it?
Yeah. Well, thankfully, I feel like we're all really well supported. Like everyone is in this together of the team, Daryl, as you yourself know. And so we're all looking out for each other and making sure, you know, we're taking care of our bodies and our souls and our minds and things like that. But I think I do feel the weight of it, in the sense that more and more people are really excited about it. And this is going to sound like people pleasing or whatever, but I don't want to let them down. I don't want to let anybody down. And I really do want the show to be good, but I don't really lose sleep. Only when we have like a really intense problem to solve, which is like, I guess sort of almost all the time.
I'm like, it's like the story of our life.
Yeah, every week. But yeah, there's always like something that I will toss and turn. Like, how are we going to fix that? But and then you said, how do I deal with that?
Yeah.
I try to like put sometimes some distance between myself and this material. Like in terms of like, I'll just try to get away for a weekend and not think about it and kind of clear my head. Cause we get way up in our heads about these characters, about this story, about the stakes. And so, yeah, I deal with it by trying to like do something that's the opposite of writing, whether that's like going for a run or just like, you know, making dinner with some friends, anything to just sort of like pull me out of the thing. Cause the longer we stay in it, the more we just spiral. And we're like, what are we going to do? How are we going to fix this problem? So yeah, thanks for that question.
Do you know the one they call Jesus? Were you one who was with him today? And if you were, tell me now why you hide in the crowd, why you fled when they took him away.